Hey, welcome back to Imperfect Action. This is episode 758. Today is a live coaching call with one of my audience members, Taila, who runs a mentoring business for university students. And her big challenge that we are workshopping today is one that I know many of you deal with in your businesses, where the person who you are working with is not necessarily the same person who is buying from you, the person who is making that purchasing decision. In her case, she's working with the university students, and the people who are actually paying her, who are making that investment, are the students' parents. So in today's episode, we're looking at some ways that she can start to address the messaging and how she's talking to these two separate audiences to ensure that both audiences have what they need to be ready to sign up and work with her. If you are somebody, for example, who you are selling to, let's say somebody who's in corporate, who has a different decision maker to the person who is taking action, this is going to be really useful for you, as well as anybody who is selling to younger people whose parents might be paying for their investment. I know you're going to get a lot out of this episode, so let's jump into the coaching call. All right, Taila, welcome to Imperfect Action. I'm super excited to have you here, and I'm super excited to workshop and coach you through a problem that I know so many other people are struggling with as well in their online businesses. Before we jump into the good stuff, I would love it if you could please introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and give us a little bit of a summary of the challenge that you are struggling with today.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. Yes, my name's Taila. I just started my business only a couple of months ago. I'm 21, so very new to this whole thing, learning a lot, but my business is mentoring for high school and uni students. So very focused on away from the academic side of things, more on organization and motivation and goal setting. So we've got a course, and then there's mentoring, one-on-one mentoring. So that's what it is. And I guess the problem that I'm finding in terms of defining my ideal customer and creating the avatar, and then figuring out what platforms to be marketing on, is that the consumer of my product are the students. So I've had a range of interest, but mainly kind of year 10 to second year of uni. But the buyer a lot of the time are the parents. And so I am really strong in communicating with students, and that's kind of where all my marketing has started with at the moment, is creating content on Instagram. And I connect really well with students, but it's hard when there's the parents the one purchasing it, and you've got to I've got to communicate with them as well. So yeah, I guess I feel like it's almost double the marketing. It feels like at this point, and I don't really know how to conquer both.
Okay, that makes so much sense, and such a common challenge as well. When the people who you are your users, they don't really have the money to go and invest that right now, but then the parents are the decision makers, and they're probably not spending as much time on Instagram as your actual users are. So I think one way to look at this is going to be to really think about the marketing and the sales as two separate processes, two separate parts of this, where the people that you are selling to are the parents. And then the marketing side, yes, you're probably going to have to be marketing to both of them. But what we really want is we want to be focusing on getting parents into that sales journey or that sales process. And whether that is through asking the students to send this to their parents or share this with their parents, or whether that is by getting directly in front of the parents. Either way, we want to make sure that we are selling to the parents. So do you at the moment have some kind of sales process in place to sell the offers?
Yeah, this is super relevant. So I have a kind of like a roadmap call session, kind of a discovery call. And for example, the other day I had a really successful one with a year 12 student, sat down for 15 minutes, set out an action plan, and she was 100% in. But it didn't end up following through because her parents didn't end up wanting to pay for it. So I think, that's definitely a gap. I do have a sales process at the moment, but it is solely in the hands of the student. So there's no kind of parent involvement in aspect of it. So
okay, easy quick win here is they need to bring their parent to that call, because the student knows you, they like you, they trust you. They have bridged that magician's gap, that gap between where they are and where they need to be ready to sign up and take the action. But the parent hasn't. Parent doesn't yet understand why their kid needs this.
Yeah.
But when you have the parent on that call, then suddenly now they are a whole lot more aware of, oh, this is what my child needs to be able to succeed. And then they're going to be much more likely to buy it. So quick, easy win is make it a prerequisite that either, and I would maybe put this in the intake form for the calls. I would have a little box that they can tick saying, I have the budget for, or I understand that working with Taila costs X amount, and then they can choose, I have the budget for this, or I'm bringing my parent along to the call. Something like that, where they understand actually there's an investment involved to continue to work with you. It's not just free advice. Yes, they're going to walk away from that call with a lot more clarity, but it's not just a jump on the call and get free advice. And if they want to keep working with you and they want their parent to pay for it, then the parent needs to be on the call as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's one way to do it. And that can then also extend to if you start using things like webinars to sell. It can be, come to this training and also bring your parent along. Or you can start to do webinars that are purely for the parents, or discovery calls that are purely for the parents. And then that's your sales process. And then it becomes, how can we fill those sales processes with the right people? And if the sales process is a discovery call with both the student and the parent, then you can keep marketing to the student. If the sales process is a webinar just to the parent, then you need to think about, how can we get in front of more of these parents and get them to register for this webinar? Is this making sense?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you currently getting in front of the parents at all?
No, I have, all of my content is focused to the student. All of my messaging on my website is using you language as opposed to your child. I have some content ideas that could kind of feed through. I was thinking maybe a Facebook to get more of the parents, but that I started brainstorming that, but it felt like I was doing double the work because I was trying to do double the content. So currently not at all.
Okay. I would think another easy win then would be on your website to have just one page, and this can be in your menu bar, and it can be for parents. And that page is designed to meet them where they're at, the struggles that they have as it relates to their child's performance at high school or uni, right? Mm-hmm. So the struggles, maybe they're feeling frustrated because they see their kid trying to study and every day they're just procrastinating, and then they're not getting the results. And as a parent, they feel like they've failed them because they don't know how to do it, how to support them, right? So you're really meeting them where they're at. And then the call to action from that page is book a discovery call or whatever sales process you want to send them into. So you've got that one page there. In terms of having to do double the work, I think you either have to, go all in on one of them. So all in on, okay, I'm only going to speak to students and I'm going to make sure that they always bring their parent along. And this might be something that you test initially to see how effective that is in terms of selling. Or it's going to be, or maybe you double down on, I'm only going to talk to parents. That could be something else you could do. Or it is going to be double the work, unfortunately. I think something like a podcast could be really effective for reaching parents. It could be a great place to be sharing. It doesn't have to be long content. It can be 5-minute episodes. But it's a great place to be sharing that slightly longer form content that their parents are going to be more likely to consume. Whereas high schoolers and uni students at the moment are probably going to be more inclined to consume shorter form content. Their parents are probably more likely to be consuming that longer form content still. It's probably, for them, they're going to need a little bit more to trust you first. And Facebook, if you're doing longer videos or a podcast, if you're in their ears for 5-10 minutes at a time, that's going to help the parents to trust you a lot more before they make that investment.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it comes more naturally to me to speak to the students. And I have a relationship with a lot of my audience already because I've shared a lot of my own student experience. So I think that probably my energy is better off going to them on Instagram and stuff. But I didn't think about long form versus short form content because it's hard to know what a parent intakes in terms of content, what their preferences are. So
I would be talking to some parents. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would be asking and have you already done this?
No.
Okay. Amazing. This is great low hanging fruit for you then.
Yeah.
So go reach out to some of your most engaged students. So think about like who would be in your current audience, think about who would be maybe 5 or 10 of your dream ideal clients to work with and ask them, hey, would you mind introducing me to your parents? I would love to have a quick chat, or maybe even can I jump on a Zoom call with you and your mom or your dad and we can chat. I just want to find out a little bit more and I'll give you 15 minutes of my time to share some advice about XYZ, or you can ask me some questions about this thing that you're struggling with. And then when you're on that call with the parent, ask them, how are you, like, what are you struggling with when it comes to, I don't know, watching your child succeed at uni?
Yeah.
And listen to what they say. And then you can always ask them follow-up questions. So if they say, well, it's really frustrating for me watching them procrastinating. And you say, well, okay, so what's frustrating about it? And then they might say, well, they're not getting good results and I feel like I've let them down. And then we can start to tap into what's going on in their minds. And that's the kind of content that we can create, content that addresses that.
Yeah.
So they might not know why they need what you're selling them yet. But if you can show them how what you're selling them meets or solves the problems and the frustrations and the challenges that they have right now, and you can do that with your free content, then they're going to be so much more likely to want to actually pay for their child to work with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So have those conversations, definitely.
Yeah. I think you forget that, especially in this kind of parent-child relationship, it's not just the child's problems. Like it's the parent also having these pain points and they're having their own problems related to it too. So
absolutely. And I mean, for the child, it also might be that they don't even know how to have that conversation with their parent. Like they've seen what you're selling. They're like, I want this.
Yeah.
But I just don't know how to position this in a way that my parent's going to see the value in it because they're not sales. They don't run their own businesses most of the time, right? Most of them probably don't. So they don't know how to sell something to their parents. And that's essentially what they are doing. If you're selling to them and then they are having to sell to their parents, you need to set them up to be selling to their parents. I see this quite a lot with people who sell to people who work in corporates, for example, and they have to then go and sell it to their boss. And something that works really well is like an email template for them where they can put all of the things that their boss needs to know to be ready to make that decision and send that to their boss. So I wonder if there's some kind of framework that you could put together for them where it's basically a script for the conversation that they have with their parent and thinking about what are the things that the parent needs to know to be willing to invest in this. And you might find that out by asking them in those one-on-one calls. Finding out, they want to know the price. They want to know how long is this going to take? How much time is it going to take? What kind of results can they expect for their teenager?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I put together a document kind of with a plan of action and personalized to the girl that I was speaking to that I think and said to her, show this to your parents. It's got pricing. It's got how I'm going to structure our sessions, what I want to do, what our goals are going to be. But I think from a student perspective myself, when I was a student, it is really hard. A lot of people wouldn't be confident going to ask their parents for that kind of money. So I feel like, it's completely out of my hands at that stage of the process. So I think, I need to get a bit of that back. And I try to kind of do that by setting them up for that conversation. But beyond that, it's really hard to kind of control that in between bit. And at the end of the call with her, I had a yes, but, and then but there wasn't much I could do. And so like, at least the way that I'm set up now. So yeah.
Okay. So those yes buts, whenever you get a yes but, write it down, because that's something that you then need to address somewhere in that sales process.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, let's say, so that you said you gave her something with like the price and all of the details and all of that. That's all the logical stuff. But we also want to include the slightly more emotional, soft feelings stuff, because that's a conversation for the student to go and say to their parents, hey, like, I'm struggling with this thing. That's possibly going to be quite a challenging conversation for them. And depending on the family that they grew up in and those dynamics, they might not feel comfortable having that conversation. So if you can give them a little bit of a script to follow where they can say, well, like, hey, mom, I'm struggling with this here, and this is the solution, and this is how it's going to help me. That's going to appeal to the parent a lot more than, well, this is the price, this is how it's structured, and this is how long it takes.
Yeah.
And then those yes buts, if you can address those maybe in the same script, yes, but I don't have the budget for it right now. Well, great. But how much have you spent on uni? One semester of uni is quite expensive. And this is actually well, I don't know what your price point is, but I'm assuming it's probably relatively cheap compared to a semester of uni fees. Or, if let's say they're at a high school and they're a private high school student, right? That's a lot of money. That's tens of thousands of dollars versus quite a small investment to get the most and to set them up to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a really interesting, this girl said that her parents wanted her to see a psychologist this year, but she said to me, I don't need a psychologist. I just need someone to kind of help me through. Yeah, it was things like academic validation and planning ahead for her term. And she said, I don't want a psychologist. This is what I would want. So even I didn't put it in that document, but I was going, well, if you compare it to if you had this many sessions with a psychologist, you're willing to spend your money there. But yeah, it's kind of hard to, I found I didn't put it in the document in terms of words because I didn't really want to. Yeah, I found it hard to kind of sell myself based on something else like that. But
so that's great. That's a great piece of free content. If you were to do that on Facebook or as a podcast, what is the difference between, why would you be able to help them in a different way, or how can you help them in a different way to a psychologist, and use that story that you just told me of, I don't need a psychologist, I just need this, because that's going to show them, actually, maybe this is going to be more helpful, and it's going to be actually it's a cheaper option as well. And I also wonder if one of the hesitations that the parents might have, because they don't know you yet, they don't trust you, they don't like you, I wonder if they're thinking, oh, here's somebody who's also quite young and, you don't have the qualifications that a psychologist does. Even though you have been through that process and you've built this, right? So you are perfectly positioned to help them with the challenges that you've been through. And I think that that's where sharing that content, getting in front of those parents a little bit more is going to help with that. And I do wonder if it might be worth doing some kind of webinar for, and I don't know how many people you've had in the past where the parents haven't signed, where the kid's been interested, but the parents haven't paid, but it might be a good idea to do like a group webinar and say, hey, it can be a small group, and say to all of those students, say, hey, I know you wanted to work with me and your parents didn't want to invest.
Yeah.
I'm running this info session, webinar, whatever you want to call it, masterclass. And I would love to have your parents come along and see if this helps them a little bit and makes them trust me a little bit more for you to work with me. Something like that. That could be an option as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think trust, that's a huge thing, because the students trust me because they know me. But yeah, I totally can see from a parent's perspective why you would be a little bit hesitant, especially if we haven't even spoken or had any form of communication. So I'm just a complete random to them. So yeah, maybe bridging that communication.
Yeah, because you got to think from their perspective, right? For them, they're like, oh, my kid's asking me to spend this money on somebody that they found on social media.
Yeah.
Or somebody selling them stuff on Instagram, right? Like that's a huge risk for them. So I would say then, based on what we've talked about, I would say your action steps are going to be jump on those calls. So book in those calls and find out what's going on in the parents' minds. Like we've brainstormed a few of the things that might be coming up, but you won't know for sure until you have those conversations. And then based on what you uncover in those conversations, set up a for parents page on your website and start incorporating the parents into that sales process, whether that's discovery calls, whether that is a webinar, whatever that sales process looks like. And then longer term, starting to think about how can you be sharing free content and getting in front of those parents in a way that feels streamlined for you. So podcast or Facebook or wherever, that's not going to add a huge amount of extra work to your plate.
Yeah.
How's that all feeling? Any questions coming up?
Well, I'm trying to think. No, that's good, because I feel like it feels at the moment just like I've just pushed it all kind of to the side, because it feels like a massive, it sounds like I have to double everything to kind of target both. But you're right. If I can streamline it a bit and include them in the important parts of the process, I might be able to hit both. Yeah.
Yeah. And really, encouraging the students to get their parents involved as much as possible. So even like once you start sharing that content for parents, saying to your students that you've got, saying, hey, share this, I've recorded this podcast episode, share this with your mom and dad.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Awesome.
Building the trust and building the communication between all parties.
Yeah. And it's going to start by starting to understand what's going on in the mind of the decision maker. So the parents, right? Like you know what's going on really well with the students. That's how you're able to connect with them so well, because you have been one of them, but you haven't been in the shoes of the parent. You don't know what's going through their minds. And there's probably a lot going on in there that you and I can't even begin to preempt. So have those conversations, and that's going to, I think, help a lot more than anything else. Especially, it's going to help a lot more than just going out there and aimlessly starting to create content.
Exactly. Yeah, which is what I do not want to do. I have no time for
Awesome. Oh, this has been such a fun one to workshop. Thank you so much, Taila. This has been a great chat. I know this is going to help a lot of people who have been listening. So thank you for sharing so openly and being so open to the suggestions and being coached and all of that.
No, thank you so much, Steph. I'm excited to get to work. That's my afternoon today.
Great.